This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Always love talking with her because it allows us to see things in a different way. Seeing the beauty, seeing the art, seeing the creativity that's around us basically 24/7. She is an art therapist and helps us realize our creative side is actually helping, I guess, the mental health side of our lives. Tons of different types of therapy out there. Art therapy is one of them. She is our professional of the year. Barbara Robertson is back with us. How is everything going with you today?
It's going great. Thanks. I'm always so happy to be here because I find these conversations really kind of help me dig into what is enlivening for me in connecting with art in some way.
Same. And it's amazing how, if you're a little intentional and you look at it in a different way, it's everywhere, whether it's nature, whether it's the wrap on the truck that just went by that caught your attention. You're not even sure why, but it was just the way the color and the contrast was all arranged. Um, Even looking at a traffic sign, some of them are pretty creative in terms of how they're
Yes,
shaped.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that I've been kind of going in this direction because I've been kind of feeling like in my past efforts to sort of become a capital A artist, I have felt constrained by our fairly narrow identification of what it takes to be art or to be an artist. And it tends to be defined as somebody creating something for aesthetic or intellectual purposes. And to
Hmm.
me, that bypasses the essential part that really, to me, makes art come alive. And that is the connection that it has to spark a little bit of joy, a little bit of awe or wonder, or even intrigue in us when we behold something that just stands out against the surrounding terrain or the surrounding walls, whatever it is. And
Is is everybody an artist?
in my, yes, in my world, if I could make the rules, that is exactly what I would say. Because to me, art is really the embodiment of love. Because when we have that feeling towards something, it can captivate our interest. When we fall in love with somebody, we want to pay all of our attention to them because they're so enlivening for us to be with. And the same thing I think can happen for um, whatever subject matter we're entertaining, even say expressing frustration by scribbling with different colors all overlapping each other on the same page to get that sort of angry tantrum energy out onto a piece of paper. And that's a beautiful reflection of what it is to be human and face an obstacle.
Hmm.
We're not going anywhere.
There's
But
so many different themes here that I've never picked up on. Like what you're saying is when somebody's creating something, sometimes there's an obstacle. How can I make it look a certain way? How do I incorporate this with my idea or take this the idea I have and then translate it to a canvas or a board or paper? So there's problem solving skills. But the love thing, that's an interesting one. And I'm thinking about that a little bit deeper
okay,
because your attention is all in at that moment when you're creating whatever the art is. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
exactly.
Could be pipe cleaners and Elmer's glue. Whatever. Does
Yes,
not matter.
totally.
But
Yes.
but here's the other part of the love thing that comes up for me. When you're doing that, usually you're doing it because you want somebody to enjoy it as well. Yes, you're doing it for yourself, but I think sometimes you also want to share it with others. And
I think
isn't that what
that's
love is?
Yeah, I do think that's possible. I think though it's more that you want to be known as you really are. And when you want love to flow between you and another person, you want them to know what it feels like when there's an obstacle you can't get around and you're so frustrated.
Hmm.
And you share this scribble page with them, and they go, oh man, I know just what that feels like. Last Tuesday, I had this conversation with my boss, and I should have gone to my office and done that exact thing. I'm going to bring crayons next week.
Hmm. Yep.
And then you feel like, okay, that was maybe not one of my better moments when I had my little tantrum with crayons, but it did make me feel a lot better. And look, that's another thing we have in common.
Well, the other part there I'm seeing is I was almost thinking that you were going down that road here, in that if you're connected to somebody close, you want them to know you, the
Yes.
authentic you.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And isn't that what's coming out of most art?
You're
Or
absolutely
should,
right.
maybe
Yeah,
should.
that's right. And it's not, I don't think it's like consciously intentional. So it's not thought programmed.
Right.
But when we have a positive or a compelling response to something that we see or feel, that's a clue that that thing is one of the things in life that matters to us. So
Yes.
it represents a value that we hold, and we may not have identified that in the past until we began to notice our interest was held enough by it that we wanted to create some imagery that reflected its nature in some way. And then as we do that, we can look at what we drew, and in the same way we share it with someone else, we share that image back to ourselves. And we go,
Hmm.
oh, that's in me. That came out of me. So it must have come from me. So it must be a part of what makes me who I am. And we build solidarity with the self that we exist in the world as we do that.
I never felt this until we talked about it, but the individuality that comes from creating something. It's very, very specific to that person.
Yes,
Everything. You know,
yes,
even if, just saying, even if somebody copied something, they were inspired by it. I like to call it inspiration.
yeah.
It's going to be different. It's never going to be exactly the same. It's probably going to have nuances of them. They may start with, the overall design, but then change the colors or whatever it might be. But it's very individual. What we're talking
Even
about.
in those sort of paint and sip groups that we've seen sort of cropping up over time,
Sure.
I do think that those kinds of things are an indication that we do want to broaden our definition of art and who can participate in it and who merits, being accepted into quote unquote the art world. But so a group of people get together, and there's usually one completed painting that they're all looking at and trying to copy in some way. And there's a little direction about what colors, you put on your palette. But then it's up to each one of them. And when I see photographs of the group at the end of the meeting, what I always celebrate is how unique each copy is, even though you can see they all started from the same image. Just what you're saying. There's
Mm.
individuality to each one that kind of shines through because of that person's eyes, that person's heart, what speaks to them the loudest, maybe what they spend the most time on in that image.
So 2 days ago, took my dog into town, and I've been trying to do this while it's still warm out. Maybe once a week, maybe once
Mhm.
every 2 weeks. He doesn't get out enough. Maybe me either. So we're going out
Yeah.
there, we're walking, looking for a place, something different that we can grab something to eat, but outdoor dine. There is a paint and sip place.
Oh,
And
cool.
and I passed it a few times. It's been closed. This time there were people in there painting. So I walk past the window and I look in. Interestingly, I wasn't looking at the paintings. I used to. I used to like, all right, let's see what are they doing? What's it looking like? I look quick. It's like, all right, we got a moon, we got, a bird on a tree.
Right, right,
Move
right.
past
Dogs
that.
and is pulling you. Yes.
I was looking at the people.
What
I
did you
was looking
notice?
how they were engaging, oh, there's date night over there. Oh, we got three women over here. What brought them here? What are they thinking? What are they getting out of it? That's where my mind was. I kind of pushed the painting part aside. I was just kind of
Yeah,
intrigued.
yeah, yeah. And I think you're onto something in that way because I think one of the essentials that we overlook about being creative is that it's first a process.
Mm,
And the product of engaging in that process is, for me, almost secondary, if not further down the line, because it's that sort of. So, first we've got community, everybody there in the same place with a shared interest, and then the dates, doing something together that's fun, that
hmm.
helps to build a relationship. The
Yep.
three friends who kind of rely on each other as a support network, going out to do something fun together
Yep.
at a time when nobody has to sort of pour their heart out to the other one, so they're freed up to just enjoy or play, but they're doing it in community, in smaller and larger
Mm.
groups, so that also the process becomes a tool for connection. So you're connecting to the imagery that you see, you're connecting with other people who are also engaging in the same process, connecting with your heart as it responds to the image, connecting to the joy that play brings when it's
Mm.
okay to do whatever you're doing. The outcome isn't the determinant of how worthy it was to do.
I was just thinking that. And I was putting myself now as we're speaking in one of those paint and sip environments. And I've done it before. It's been years, probably about 10 years. But I know I'm different now in that I don't care how it comes out. Back then, it was like, well, I got to make sure, because people used to think of me as a little bit artistic because I used to draw cartoons. I was saying, I got to meet, man, I got to measure up to that expectation.
Yes,
Now in my journey, all out the window.
yes.
If I was there, I would probably wouldn't even be looking at the camera. I'd be talking, how's everybody doing? What kind of paint we got here? And then whatever comes out, comes out. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
worried about it. I don't
yeah,
care. I don't care.
absolutely. I mean, you could even take a landscape and turn it into an abstract.
Of course.
Not a tree. There's a sort of a cloud of color, and there's a post. And some of the like early 20th century paintings have like taken apart the elements of landscape and moved them all over and sort of jumbled up the canvas. And those artists got to be well known for putting more than one point of view in a painting at the same time. But they must have had the same kind of decision. Oh, I don't have to do it as if I'm standing in one place and this is exactly what I see.
Right.
I can already see that. What can I not see in the real world that I can put on my canvas that invites me to see more or to see differently?
Mm. I know I asked you this in the very beginning when we got together, and that was quite some time ago. And I can't remember the answer.
Okay, ask
Art
again.
therapy, art therapy, chicken or the egg. Which came first, the art side of you or the therapeutic side? Were you very much into art and said, wait a minute, I can blend this into therapy? Or, yeah, I studied the mind, but I love the art aspect of it. How did that all go?
Excuse me. I think the art part came first for me.
Okay. Hmm.
So I can remember drawing pictures ever since I was a little kid. Reading a book when I was about in fifth grade called The Borrowers, I think, about these little miniature people that live in between the walls in houses and they come scurrying out and borrow things like thimbles to use for wastebaskets and other sorts of things like that. So they're creating a whole furnished world in between the walls. And it inspired me so much. I started begging shoe boxes from my mom and using scraps and, discarded this and that and pieces of toys and whatever I could get my little hands on to
Hmm.
create this kind of miniature environment that these quote unquote borrower type little people could live in. And it was so satisfying for me to create this environment that was sort of created as a way of making do with what came to hand. And I think that's what I loved about it. And that, I hadn't thought about that until just now, but that has really kind of been a theme in my life. I mean, my dad was a teacher, so we weren't rolling in the bucks as a kid, but they were careful and, prioritized what was important, and really, I think, gave us a pretty solid grounding in noticing and working with what you had.
Mm.
And I later did an art series about Adam and Eve after they got out of the garden. They were tossed out, that I called Adam and Eve making the best of it.
Wow. Yeah, there is something to be said about that, and I can relate. My mom was single, two kids. I wanted to draw. When I had literally like $2 and was able to walk up to the pharmacy, I would buy ink, pen and ink. That was my thing because I drew cartoons
Oh, yeah.
and different pen points and all of that. And
Oh,
then when,
yeah.
I had like $10, I would get the board, which was called bristle board.
Oh, right. Yep.
And there was two, it was either, smooth finish or vellum finish,
Yeah.
which is a little bit rougher. Um, but that was magical. I
Yes.
will say I wasted a lot of paper because I was a perfectionist, but there was just having fresh materials and that brand new, bottle of ink.
Yes. Yes.
And even when the holder for the pen point broke, remember it was red. I was like, tape came out. I got it
I
so
was
it could
going to
work.
say, yep.
But you
Yeah.
made do with what you had. But I believe that made it more enjoyable.
I think that's true. And I think that's kind of another way that we stand in solidarity with the essence of ourself, because what resources we do have, we want to expend on something that matters to us,
Mm.
something that we get value back from. So ultimately, we feed the art and the art feeds us.
Where was that moment where you realized that art is therapeutic? Was it your own experience?
Yes, it was. It
Mm.
was. And it kind of happened in hindsight, but I will tell you, in my late 20s, I had checked all the boxes of everything an adult should have to be happy. And I wasn't.
Mm.
I was miserable. So I screwed up the courage to go into therapy. Took me 5 phone calls, 5 separate phone calls on 5 different occasions to stay on the line long enough for the receptionist to put me on hold and get the scheduling book and come back. That means I hung up on her 4 times before I stayed on the call long enough to make an appointment.
Wow.
That's how scary therapy was.
Well, hold on here. Not to talk about age or anything like that, but back then, even if you went back 15 years, it was a little uncomfortable. There was an admission and judgment. Somebody's got therapist. Somebody's a little off
Yeah,
up there. It was ridiculous,
yeah,
but
there was quite a bit more stigma back then.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. But even just the sort of interpersonal thing, I have to go in there and tell somebody that I have all my happiness boxes checked and it's not enough. What's wrong with me?
right. Mm.
So I also had been painting oil paintings and portraits and really just going gung-ho with it. And I ran into a screeching halt. I couldn't do another drawing. I was stuck.
Wow.
So that was the other reason that really got me off my cushion and into therapy, because I didn't like the feeling of all the creative spark just going dark. So after a few sessions, he proved to be a very helpful individual, very much accepting of whatever you came in with, which is ideal. And that's what you want to find on your first experience in therapy for sure. So I was blessed. But talking about my stuckness, he said, I want you to just go home and get a piece of paper and find something to just make marks with and just let your hand do what it wants. So, okay. that I could probably do that. So I came home, the house was empty. My husband was probably away on a trip because I remember I really was glad for the privacy. And I knelt down on the floor in my little art room with a piece of paper and a black crayon. And I let it start moving around on the paper. And then I was pressing harder and it was moving faster and it was moving all over. And the next thing I knew, I was bursting into tears and sobbing loud, ugly cry sobs. Another reason why I was glad the house was empty, because only I could hear myself. But it broke something loose in me that I had been really jamming up. A lot of it was grief at the loss of a granddad who had been that sort of ideal provider of unconditional love, as grandparents often are for us, because they don't have to be behavior correctors.
Right.
They can just accept. And my granddad was so good at that. All my three other siblings also have the same feeling about him. So kudos to him, wherever he is in the heavens, that he was able to be so generous with that kind of love. But I
Mm.
was afraid to feel how bad it felt until I did the scribbling on that page. And it let my feelings loose in a way that allowed them to be contained in the scribbles in a finite space on that paper. It gave them a boundary, a border. It didn't let them fill up the whole house and go out the chimney and fill up the whole cosmos, which sometimes when you have a scary feeling and you're afraid it's going to just take over and overwhelm everything. I have been anyway. I guess some of that depends on how your parents or your original family responds to you showing feelings, but it was kind of a no-no in our house when I was little.
Oh yeah.
So
Again, it
why?
goes back to,
Sorry
the,
about
the judgment thing.
it.
I give
Yes.
you a lot of credit for going to therapy in your upper 20s, realizing that I got everything. I don't have anything at that time, and how you just purged. And the grief thing, there's a whole other topic we could talk about
Oh,
here.
yes.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and art is wonderful for that, exactly for that reason.
we don't realize that we're all grieving. I believe we all are
I think you're
something,
right.
maybe
Yes.
multiple things. You
Yes.
don't even, you've buried it. You don't even know what it is. It could be the passing of a relative when you were 15. It could be the loss of a pet, when you're 9. It could be 2 years ago you got divorced. End of a relation. It's the ending of something. Um, I do want to thank you for my epiphany, where I realized that me drawing cartoons as a 9, 10 year old, that was my therapy. I never realized that until I met you, that that's what was actually going on. That was my escape. That was my therapy. That was my purging. That was, from being bullied, from parents getting divorced when I was very young, all of that.
Yes.
I
All of
see
it.
myself sitting in the basement drawing, and then, got to the point where now I'm in my room where I got a drafting table,
Oh,
magical
cool.
at that time. But it's
Yeah.
that therapy
Yeah.
continued
Yes.
until I was in my 20s.
Yeah. And you built a sense of competence
Yeah.
by keeping, when the more you keep doing something, the more skill you build. You probably had a kind of flow going where you just, the next thing you draw, no matter how many pieces of paper you throw away, you're learning something from each one.
And from each one, when
It
somebody
builds.
praised it, it was almost like one step on the mountain of
Yeah.
creative expression where, oh,
Yeah.
that went okay. They like that. Let me do that again. Let me do that. That feels good. That feels good. Till you get to the point where now you can be creative and without
Exactly.
judgment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I've heard it said many times that creativity is essential to mental health because being creative means being open to what is and making use of it in a way that is beneficial to you
Mm.
or to your values, that is in line with your values.
If you said that before I met you, I'd be like, yeah, I think so. Now it's crystal clear. Uh, we're out of time. Always wonderful talking with you.
Thanks. Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
I just love being able to kind of plumb the depths a little bit.
Yeah, but creating awareness that creativity is therapy and can help you. You probably don't realize it, like I didn't, but it moves your life forward. It allows you to purge things, all different, all many
That's
different
right.
things.
That's right. And
Uh,
we have that inherent sort of wisdom about how to heal. If you scratch yourself in an instant, your body sends lymph cells to that place where the skin is broken. I believe the same thing happens with our emotional wounds. We know what we need to heal, and our whole system tries to guide us toward it.
100%. And I heard this is one of my takeaways in the last 6 months. Somebody said, when you have those memories that aren't that great of a trauma, something happened, maybe in your childhood, whatever it is, when you remember it, that is your mind, your subconscious saying, I got to heal from this. I need some help over here. Come on. That's why I'm throwing this to you. Let's work on this together. And many times we just push that memory back, throw it in the emotional backpack, as if that sucker up, and then just move on. But you really need to heal from it. Uh, Robertson Art Therapy LLC.com. Do I have that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Always great talking with you. I want to throw it out there. Instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. If you have a comment, maybe this is part of your journey. Maybe it's inspired you. Would love to hear from you. Keep it anonymous if that supports you. It's all good.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds great. I hope that we will. I would love to be able to actually have some feedback coming in sometimes when we talk, so we can
Yep.
add, a couple more points of view. I don't know
Send them
if
on in.
that's workable, but that would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Was
right.
it instant feedback, steve@gmail.com?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah. All right. Barbara, thank you so much for today, as always. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.